The rain pounded against my windshield as I pulled up in front of Vanessa's immaculate suburban home. My chest tightened when I saw him, my 6-year-old son, sitting hunched on the porch, the storm soaking him through. His small backpack lay tipped over beside him, spilling damp books and clothes across the concrete. He was trembling, lips tinged blue, eyes raw and hollow. I barely remember opening the car door. The downpour swallowed me in seconds as I sprinted across the driveway. When I lifted him into my arms, he didn't cry, didn't protest. He simply melted against me, limp and silent, the way a wounded animal curls into shelter. His tiny body shuddered against mine, and then, so faint I almost missed it, came the words against my neck. She hit me with the shoe, Mama. I was just singing. I wasn't yelling. My name is Rachel. I'm 34, a tech consultant, and that was the moment a rainstorm became a hurricane. The front door creaked open just as I turned toward the car with Owen in my arms. Vanessa stood framed in the doorway, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Perfect hair, flawless makeup, silk blouse that hadn't seen a drop of rain. A mimosa dangled in her manicured hand. Her smirk was ice on fire. "Oh, come on," she scoffed. It wasn't that serious. He was being obnoxious, screaming like a banshee while I was on an important Zoom call. I needed peace. My grip on Owen tightened. "You hit him." "Don't be dramatic," she said, chuckling. "It was just a slipper. Kids need discipline." I set Owen carefully into the back seat of my car, pulling an emergency blanket from the trunk to wrap him in. His eyes clung to me, filled with a trust so heavy it nearly crushed me. He needed me to fix this. "You threw my son into a thunderstorm," I said, my voice low but shaking. Vanessa sipped her drink, her smirk never faltering. "He's fine. Honestly, if you weren't such a coddling single mom, maybe he wouldn't be so." I slammed the car door before she could finish. The sound cut through the storm like thunder. My hands trembled as I started the engine, my vision blurred by tears I refused to let fall. Not yet. Not until Owen was warm, safe, and far from her. For 6 years, I'd balanced 2 jobs while building my tech consultancy on the side. I'd swallowed every offhand remark from my family about my little hobby, while they applauded Vanessa's every accomplishment. The golden child, the one who could do no wrong. College paid in full by my parents, a house down payment gifted without hesitation, her engagement celebrated as if it were royalty, and me, told to take out loans, told to look into government assistance, told to make do. That morning, when I dropped Owen at her house, I'd felt the usual sting of being the lesser sister. My mother had orchestrated it, insisting it would help Owen connect with his aunt before the big wedding. And besides, she had said, it will give you time to catch up on whatever it is you do. Now, as I carried my son into our small apartment, I drew a bath and lowered him into the warm water, washing away the rain and the hurt. I pressed kisses to his damp hair and whispered into the steam, over and over, that he was safe, that he was loved, that he mattered more than anything. When he finally drifted to sleep, his little hands still clinging to mine even in dreams, I reached for my phone. My fingers hovered only a moment before I pressed the call button. This time, things would not be swept under the rug. This time, I wasn't backing down. The rain still clung to my clothes when I called my parents. "Mom." Vanessa hit Owen and locked him outside in the storm. There was a pause, then my mother's signature sigh, the one that always carried more annoyance than care. "You always exaggerate, sweetheart." "Exaggerate?" My heart twisted. "I'm not." My father's voice came through next, calm, dismissive. "Vanessa's under a lot of pressure with the wedding. Don't spoil her moment." Not one question about Owen. Not a single flicker of worry for their grandson, who had been shivering, lips blue in the rain. Only excuses. Only a shield thrown up for Vanessa. "Did you even hear me?" My voice cracked down to a whisper. "She hit your grandson and left him in a thunderstorm." "Well," my mother said flatly, "maybe if he wasn't so loud all the time." I stared at my phone, the words slicing deeper than the storm outside ever could. A text came seconds later, as if she had been ready to send it. "Don't make this into drama. Your sister's wedding is next week. Don't ruin it like you ruin everything." Something inside me shifted then, not with fire or shouts, but with a final, quiet snap. They hadn't protected me when I was a child. And now, they wouldn't even lift a finger for my son. That night, as Owen slept beside me, his lashes damp from the tears he had shed, I made my choice. I was finished playing the role of the overlooked one. What no one in my family knew, because they had never cared to ask, was that my little side hustle had outgrown its name. The project Vanessa once ridiculed as my cute hobby had blown up into something serious. I had savings, investors, people in high places who respected me more than my own blood ever had. The next morning, while Owen pushed his toy truck across the rug, I opened my laptop. Calls first to one lawyer, then 3. Then to the country club hosting Vanessa's grand wedding. It took one conversation, 2 wire transfers, and 40 minutes of paperwork. The venue no longer belonged to her. It belonged to me. And her reservation? Canceled. She wouldn't know until the news hit her inbox. I wanted it to burn. The days passed. My parents carried on like nothing had happened, posting cheerful countdowns, spamming pictures of dress fittings and champagne glasses, gushing about family love. Vanessa played her princess role to perfection. Not a word about Owen. Not a single apology. On Tuesday, 5 days before the wedding, the club emailed her the news. The venue was under new ownership. The event could not be held. My phone rang within the hour. What did you do? Vanessa hissed. I'm not sure what you mean. I kept my tone light. Don't you dare play dumb. You've always wanted to ruin me. What did you say to them? I didn't say a word, I replied, letting a pause stretch. But it's interesting that you think I could. You're bitter, she snapped, but I hung up before she could finish. Instead, I poured myself into a different plan. I arranged my own private gathering, not a wedding, but a celebration. I invited the relatives who had always looked through me like I was a shadow. Friends who never asked how I was. None of my immediate family, of course. This wasn't for them. I booked catering, a string quartet, decorated the hall with framed photos, Owen's drawings, snapshots of milestones, pieces of my life they had never cared to see. I built a slideshow. Years of work, quiet victories, the journey they had all ignored. 2 days before her ruined wedding, Vanessa called again, her voice sharp and fraying. The decorator canceled. The band canceled. What's happening? Maybe ask Mom and Dad, I said smoothly. They're convinced you deserve everything. Maybe they can conjure it for you. You're selfish, just like when you struck a child with a slipper and threw him into the rain. My words cut through her tirade. Silence followed, heavy and cold. Finally, she muttered he was being loud. And you'll think of that every time thunder rolls, I said, and ended the call. But I wasn't finished. On the Saturday that should have been her wedding day, guests arrived at the country club in gowns and suits, only to be greeted by a sign at the entrance. Private celebration of strength and survival, by invitation only. The staff, well briefed, redirected everyone inside. There, in the hall that was once meant to crown Vanessa Queen of the Day, I stood at the center with Owen at my side in a tiny suit. The walls were lined with photos, the slideshow running in the background. The guests walked through slowly, whispers spreading as they pieced together the story of betrayal, cruelty, and survival. And then the doors slammed open. Vanessa appeared in her full bridal gown, tiara sparkling, her face thunderous. This time, though, every eye was not on her. It was on me, and on the truth they had all chosen to overlook until now. The bride's makeup was ruined, black trails of mascara running down her face as she demanded an answer. I met her gaze and smiled faintly. You struck my son, I said, each word deliberate. You mocked me. You erased us. I gestured around the room, the guests whispering, the silence that had settled. This is what forgotten really looks like. She turned desperately toward my parents for support, but they stayed frozen. Because by then, the world had already seen the truth. I'd managed to get the footage from her own doorbell camera, a recording of the night she locked Owen outside in the storm. A friend in tech security helped me pull it, and another helped me release it online just a day earlier. The video spread fast. It had been on social media, then in the news. Sponsors dropped her, and her fiancé slipped away, retreating quietly back to his family. And now here she was, standing in her dream gown, humiliated and alone. Vanessa collapsed into a chair, her pristine white dress wrinkling beneath her, sweat staining the bodice. Strands of hair clung to her wet cheeks. Her lips moved over and over. This wasn't supposed to happen. This was my day, but nobody rushed in. Nobody defended her. For the first time, she stood without an audience to cheer her on. Across the room, Owen tugged on my sleeve. "Mommy, why is Auntie crying?" I crouched down, kissed his forehead, and whispered, because she finally sees the storm she made. This was never about revenge. It was about truth, about balance. And this was only the beginning. My parents approached cautiously, the same people who had dismissed my child's pain as exaggeration. My mother toyed with her pearl necklace. My father cleared his throat. "You didn't have to destroy her life like this," he muttered. I tilted my head, sharp with disbelief. "Did you say that when she raised her hand against a child?" "She was under a lot of stress," my mother offered weakly. "The wedding. She struck my 6-year-old and you laughed." I cut her off, my voice steel. "You watched him cry, shiver, and beg. And you told me he should learn to be quieter. Don't you dare lecture me about cruelty now." My father tried again, but putting it online, making it go viral, that was harsh. I stared him down. "She hit a child, and then you plastered pictures of cake and flowers across the internet like nothing had happened. You showed her that hurting people doesn't come with consequences." All I did was make sure it finally did. They had no reply. The string quartet continued playing softly in the background, though the notes felt hollow now. Owen laughed with one of the catering staff, spinning in circles. Guests mingled in hushed tones, most avoiding Vanessa, some watching her like she was a stranger they'd never known. And in truth, her mask was gone. It didn't end there. A week later, an email arrived from Vanessa's ex-fiancé. No anger, no accusations, just a simple note. "Thank you. I didn't see it before, but I do now. I hope you and your son are safe." 2 weeks later, a sponsorship company made a public statement cutting ties with her, citing recent revelations inconsistent with our values. A month after that, my mother called me. Her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. "We need help. The community won't speak to us. Everyone thinks we condone abuse. Don't you?" I asked quietly. She stammered. "I suppose it's just hard having your own daughter turn against you." I exhaled. "I didn't turn against you. You were never standing beside me." And I ended the call. That was the last time I spoke to her for a while. Half a year later, life was different. I had opened a second office. The company I'd helped build had grown across 3 cities. Owen was thriving in school, happy and safe. Then came a knock at my office door. Vanessa. But she was not the same woman. The glamour was gone. No jewels, no makeup, just a faded hoodie. Her eyes were ringed with exhaustion. She held a folder in trembling hands. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I lost everything. Sponsors, clients, friends. I thought I was strong, but I was just loud. You were the strong one." She extended the folder toward me. Inside were therapy documents, legal statements, and a handwritten letter to Owen. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said softly, "but I need you to know I'm trying, and I'll never forgive myself for what I did." I said nothing, but in my mind, I heard Owen's voice from that awful night. "Why do they hate me, Mommy?" I would never let him wonder that again. So I took the folder, not for her sake, but for his. Because he deserved to know that even those who caused pain could one day learn to kneel, and that no matter how dark it gets, truth always finds the light. And that was enough.